Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Stephanie McAuliffe. Stephanie speaks and writes on the human condition and the impact of our internalized energies. After 27 years on Wall Street, she's the founder of Way of the Diamond Warrior and specializes in personal transformation coaching and multi-dimensional energy work. What? She is here to talk about creating boundaries and finding balance within by healing both our wounded masculine and feminine. Author of 2 best-selling books, She's also a nature enthusiast and lover of art and live music. Yes. Welcome, Stephanie. How are you?
I'm awesome, and it's so good to be here.
Yes. So hang on a second. I have to ask, I know we have so much to cover. I want to cover a little bit about your past stuff that you've gone through, how you got to where you are. I want to cover all the awesome things that you're doing now, and this might be related. But I have to ask, what is multi-dimensional energy work? I've never heard of this.
It's something I've coined, and we heal physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And we also heal, when we heal the energy that we've held within, we're not only healing this current life, we're also helping to heal the energy of our ancestors and those who come before and after us, as well as our own past lives.
Wow. Where is that done? Is that done out here or is that done in here?
All of it. So for instance, and we'll get more into this as we go through, but when we carry traumas, we hold the energy within our body. We also think about it, although we may spend a lot of energy trying to push it away and ignore it. It affects our thought, it affects our emotions, it affects our physical body. Most of disease is not genetic. And from a spiritual perspective, when we don't feel safe, it isn't safe to connect.
Yes, that makes sense. 100. Well, I'm excited to dive into that. I so appreciate you being here. I so appreciate you taking some time out of your day to sit down, relax. We've been in contact for a really long time, and you've been through some stuff. But I'm so excited to hang out and to finally get a chance to share a stage with you and hear some of your journey. So I would love to kind of dive into stories that have pivoted your life and what you learned during those times, if you could share with us.
The most recent is that breast cancer has been a gift of grace. Truly, I'm living in Utah right now, and I had moved here in September of 19. And about 15 months later, I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer and had a golf ball sized lump in my right breast, which is our masculine side, is our right side, and our feminine side is the left. And 4 days before my mastectomy, I canceled it because I received the message of this isn't necessary. And I kept saying, what isn't necessary? What isn't necessary? And so I went down, I decided to go down the rabbit hole of researching natural medicine, what was best for me, because I knew chemo was not an answer for me. And I had already fired some doctors who all they wanted to do was pump me full of drugs. And I had already spent so much time healing and uncovering my stories, and a lot of that is in my first two books. And it's really been pretty amazing, because this has given me the opportunity to heal a lot of both toxic masculine and feminine energies that I have carried. And so we can look at something physical like a cancer diagnosis as being traumatic, and I just wanted to get it out of my body, and I don't want it anymore. And while that is true, it's also an opportunity to look at, what are the stories I'm carrying that are connected with this, so that I can also not only heal body, I can heal mind and spirit.
So did you do that work on yourself to dive into that?
I did. And I also have friends who are healers. I did some EMDR therapy as well. So we're not meant to do everything on our own. As much as we would like to think that we can control the process, we're not meant to be alone. We're not meant to be separate in this world. And so it's been one of finding the exact right people showed up at the exact right time. And even medical professionals as well. It's sometimes it's exploring a path to its end, and it may feel like a dead end. And then yet when we say, well, okay, that took me to a certain point, now where do I go? And we get curious, then the next fork opens up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. How far in your healing / personal development journey before this news came to bay?
Well, back when I worked on Wall Street, I had gone to therapy to initially deal with the sexual abuse I experienced as a child. I really got more deeply into this back in 2012, when I was still divorced. I was still married to my second husband, who was in the throes of his own alcoholism. And so I decided I needed to do something for myself. 2 years later, we ended up getting divorced. And then I really went even more deeply into my own healing journey. But I would say at this point, when I was diagnosed, I was 8, 9 years into it.
How did that help you mentally?
It's helped me to see that the world is not personal.
Yes, thank you.
Right?
Yes.
We think that people are doing things because of us, and the majority of it has absolutely nothing to do with us. They're doing or saying things because of their own emotions, their own stories, their own triggers, their own boundaries. And yet, I actually journaled this morning. The person you're having the biggest challenge with right now is in your life to help you heal old boundaries you were never able to create when you were a child.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's so interesting how this part of the healing comes in time. So, when you start on your journey, it's all fun and games. It's like, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. And then you
Mm-hmm.
really start to dig in and you find out stuff like this. And it really starts to like, holy crap, what is going on? Because it's next level. When you really dig into that, it's like, it's all this time we spent doing it the other way.
And it gives us so much freedom.
Yep. I love it.
And to dig in gives us freedom. And we've been told, and society still doesn't support mental health. And there's a lot of people who call energy work woo, and we can call it whatever we want. I know the facts of, I like to say energy work completed the sentence.
I love that.
It really did. And I've seen it in clients as well. So really our biggest fear is the key to our freedom.
Yeah. It's so funny. I was just having this conversation with somebody um literally just a couple days ago about the woo woo, and he's an energy coach type healer sort of mix. And I was just being honest with him. I was like, he was pitching his whatever program course or whatever. And I was like, I have to think about it. My mind works differently. I'm not that I'm opposed to it. It's just to get coaching on that, I don't really know. And then he opened up to this whole other aspect of his life that is more masculine, and his past experience and his past work, and what led him to the journey that he's on now. And I resonated so closely with it that it really helped me really see the importance of it more so than I have. I've had all kinds of coaches on this. I've interviewed, I've had over 400 women on this platform. And look, a large majority of them have been in the spiritual healing type, energy type realm. And the context of so much that I've learned has helped me so much. But just that added hit of the importance of it for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it comes naturally more to some people than it does.
Well, it does. And I think about my 27-year career on Wall Street, and I was in project and program management. And if you had told me back then that I would be doing what I'm doing now, I would have told you that you were absolutely nuts, and go fly a kite and go do all kinds of other things. And really, though, when my career on Wall Street ended in 2015, I got to the point where it was exhausting to continue to push to try to do what I was trying to do.
Wow.
And that really is part of the toxic masculine.
Yeah. Wow.
It's the push and trying to control and the drive. And so I fit right in on Wall Street because I'm an A personality, although people see me now and they say, I can't imagine you working on Wall Street for 27 years. And yet it fed me back then.
Wow.
And so it's also a story of coming back to the truth of who we are. It's Wall Street helped me hide what I didn't want to see.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When you look at your journey now, and when you're confronted with a challenge or a struggle, either head on or you're in the midst of it, what is your step-by-step process that you use now to really help you go from a darkness to a light? Because I know it's got to be different than the way that it was.
Oh, back in the day, I would try to control the situation and control you and what you did and how we interacted, and I expended so much energy. And I call control the 7-letter C word.
Oh, I love that.
Right? We spend so much time and energy trying to control the world around us. Now I have a journal, and I look at, am I acting or am I reacting? So it's really an exercise in multiple levels of self-awareness. Because if I'm reacting, it means I've been triggered in some way. So in what way am I being triggered? And I'll give you an example. There's work being done in my apartment now. What was supposed to be a 2-week project is now 6. And the contractor shows up, an hour here, 2 hours there, sometimes communicates, sometimes doesn't. And I started to get really triggered by it. And what I realized is that I was expecting him to show up as I have expected others to show up in my life in the past who didn't. So I've looked at, where did my own expectations get me in trouble? Or really the energy of, I'll use my second husband, for example, to be able to clear that energy, because when we're in a relationship with someone, there are expectations. And yet, when we met and when we married, things shifted. First 5 years were great. And then things happened and he spiraled. Well, my expectation was to try to bring it back to the way things were. And it only made me miserable. So this contractor's helped me to see where my own expectations have gotten in the way, and I can journal on it and clear the energy. And to really look at people as who they are, not how I want them to be.
When did you start to journal? When did you use that technique or tool?
I really, back when I started my healing journey, I was always afraid in the past that someone would read what I wrote. So I never felt safe having one. And really, when I dove into this, it was a way for me to clear my thoughts. And it can be really cathartic as well, because sometimes, for instance, because my second husband was deep in his alcoholism, we weren't able to have the conversations that I wanted to have. So I once wrote him a 30-page letter that would never be sent. But it's all the things that I thought that I wanted to express. And so journaling isn't necessarily just to write down, I went and had a bologna sandwich and I went on a hike. And it's really for us to be able to exercise these thoughts.
Yeah.
And the energy that goes with them.
Yeah. Agree with that. It's not like when you were 12 years old talking about your school crush or something like that.
Right.
I want to ask, when you were giving that example of the person working on your home, just so that we can clear the communication with those watching live. By the way, thank you for watching live, for those that are watching, for those watching on the replay. If you are watching us live, by the way, if you could share this video, we would appreciate it so we can get more ears and eyes on Stephanie and her story. But when you were sharing that story, completely understood where you were coming from, and at the same time thought, what are the boundaries and what are the expectations and what is the communication that we should be doing so that we don't feel like we're being taken advantage of?
So I started to get more direct in my communication with him. And I rent where I live. So it's a little bit out of my control because the owner is the person who approved the project. So it's being more direct with him. And the property management company was sold in the middle of this project. So yesterday I had a conversation with the new property manager. I have been in email contact with the owner and basically have said to the contractor that this isn't acceptable. It's not acceptable to extend my project while you take time off from this to go work on others. And he comes up with excuses. And so I'm not really expecting anything from him. I know the project will get done, and I feel a lot better now that I've had the conversation with the new property manager. And I also see the contractor as someone who, I know he has an old addiction to drugs. And so I'm seeing beyond this person who is still finding his way and is in some ways still acting like a junkie. And yet that's not the truth of who he is. And so, yes, part of me can be pissed, and I can also see the deeper level of who this person is out from underneath the labels that I might want to apply towards him. And it's
Definitely.
really, is it Buddha who's, or someone who said, um, we can choose to be happy. And I'm choosing to, I've done what I needed to do, and then I let it go.
There you go. That's all you can do.
Mm-hmm.
When you are pivoting, or as you have pivoted in your world from one persona or identity into another, what limiting beliefs did you kind of have to shed as you were stepping into this new Stephanie?
Oh my goodness. That I wasn't worthy, that nobody wanted to listen to me, that what I wanted it didn't matter, that someone else was always more important. I grew up feeling very alone and not supported, almost like I was living on an island by myself. I actually have this image from an old meditation. The house I lived in from age 7 to 12, 13, was standing next to the house. And it was like there was an island in the yard, and I'm just standing on it. There's no one around me, and there's no support. There's no anything. So it's really, and I was told multiple times that I'd never amount to anything.
Oh. How did you go about shifting that?
It's been a journey of understanding that I come from generationally at least 4, but I count 10 generations of women who were not supported by their mothers, who were sexually abused, who didn't feel safe enough to support themselves, let alone their daughters. And that's the basis of a lot of it, because there's a lot of generational trauma that has been passed down from both sides of my family. And so the women didn't feel supported, they didn't feel safe. And if you think about it, I was born in the early 60s. Back then, women didn't have any agency. It's hard enough now. So that was a big part of it, really, of understanding that I am worthy. I do have a legitimate place on this earth because I wouldn't have been born otherwise. And it's been one of looking at the other stories of relationships that I had that actually perpetuated my own energy of feeling like my voice didn't matter and what I wanted didn't matter. And so I go back to that comment earlier of the person who's most triggering for us is actually here to help us heal our old wounds. I've paraphrased, but so it's really seeing how these people have been catalysts for me.
Yeah.
Even though it was hard. But when we can look at something from a little bit of a different perspective, that's when we can see the world isn't personal. And we can almost look at it as if we're sitting in the balcony of a theater and we're looking at ourselves and all the actors in our play and seeing how people are interacting. I call it our spider web. And it gives us the freedom to look at it from a different perspective and not be pulled into those old emotions.
Yeah, what a great visual. Thank you for giving that to us. Yeah, pulling yourself out of it kind of releases all that energy or feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Able to see it. I love that. Yeah, I want to ask, when you're talking about your ancestors, is this something that you feel, that you know, that you've seen, that you've heard? How does one go about digging into that to even know?
My mother and I have gotten to a place where she knows I'm not throwing daggers at her anymore. And I can ask her questions, and she answers from her perspective, which people will do, and yet she's given me nuggets of information. And during her mother's last 10 months of life, they lived together. And that was when my grandmother shared that she had been sexually molested and realized who her husband was when she got married and couldn't go home. She had no place to go, so she toughed it out for 32 years with a mean alcoholic. And that she hadn't been protected by her mother, who had also been assaulted. And through some of the energy work that I've done, I've taken it back 10 generations. And that's the number that's come to me. And I've had visions of all of these women standing around holding hands and dancing because the energy has been cleared.
How does somebody have to work with someone like you, like a Stephanie, in order to start this process? Or is this something that they can kind of step into on their own? How does that work?
I started out some of this on my own. I went to Al-Anon for a while, which is for families who have alcoholics or people who have alcoholics in their family, which helped me a lot. I went to therapy. I did a lot of journaling. I took some courses. I studied with different people, and it's a process. I call it, it's like the layers of our cake. And we have multiple layers. And sometimes, for instance, when I went to therapy, it helped me to a certain point, which was good. And then it's like, I like to say, spirit will never give us more than we can handle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then it may come up again. And you're like, why am I here again? Because we're here to clear another layer of it. So it may start with the mental and emotional, which is therapy. And then we can do body work. We can do breath work, which does a lot. Yoga is great for moving our energy. And yet there's a certain awareness that we need of where this comes from. Because I like to say, with awareness, then we can know what it is that we're clearing, rather than just laying on a table and saying to somebody, clear my energy. Because it's really, right? Because it's really when we have awareness of what our patterns are that we can break them.
Yeah, I agree with that, definitely.
So there's multiple things that people can do. And and both of my books have a lot of introspective questions and exercises and meditations that the readers can do and go as deep as they want to. Because sometimes it's just dipping our toe into the water, and then we can go up to our ankle, and then we can go to our knee. And I see it as a process of learning to trust our own voice and our own inner truth. And when we do a little and we're okay, then we can do a little more, and then we can do a little more. And it's our layers.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also being patient with yourself and allowing yourself to have grace of being open to, and that's it, just being open to it, not believing or diving in or doing, or just being open to it. Does a world of difference. The Her Version podcast here speaks directly to women. And we have quite a few women watching live right now. Thank you for being here. I want to ask, for those that are here, they're resonating with what you're saying, they're open to putting their big toe into the pool of multi-dimensional, what is it? Healing.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who is listening right now and they're like, get it, Stephanie, cool, good on you, Sounds like you're in a really great spot. But my story is way different than your story. And there's no way that with my story, I could possibly ever get to the point that you're at. What would be some advice? What would be some words of encouragement or love that you would give to somebody right now?
The first question I would ask is, why do you think it's not possible? Because I truly believe in my heart there is no story that can't be healed. And for a long time, I walked around like a wounded victim.
Mm-hmm.
You did this, you did that, you didn't do this. And I got tired of carrying that energy. And that was when I started to dip my toe into the water. So the first question really is, why do you think it's not possible? Because our stories support us for a while.
Yeah.
They could even fuel us as we move through life.
Yeah.
And then I made the decision that I didn't want to live that way anymore. It was exhausting. So exploring why. Because if we're waiting for someone to give us an apology, would you rather be right? That's the quote. Would you rather be right or would you rather be happy?
Yeah.
And sometimes it is, I like to say, acceptance doesn't mean agreement. I don't agree with a lot of the things that happened in my life. And yet I've come to a place of not being triggered by them anymore so that I can talk with them, talk about them in places like this, and show what's possible. Because when we decide we want something different for ourselves, this is when the door cracks open. So I go back to why. Because if we're waiting for that person to apologize or make amends or do whatever, we've set an energetic boundary with them, and we're continuing to give them our energy.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes that's hard for people to conceptualize right away. And that's
Yeah.
kind of the first step. I love that's a great.
And it was hard for me
Yeah.
because I didn't want to forgive. I didn't want to let it go. And it was actually through the writing of my first book that I had some really deep realizations, because I kind of heal as I write things like that. And writing, I go back to journaling. Writing can be incredibly cathartic.
Yeah.
Ponder
Definitely.
why.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Um throughout your journey, I assume Wall Street sounds successful. Um what is your definition of success now?
Being at peace within.
Mm.
When I was on Wall Street, I was managing a 4-year, $85 million global tax transformation program.
Wow.
And I thought I had hit it. And then I took a package. The program was complete, and they were getting ready for RIFs, reduction in force, and took a package. And then I sat and like, what am I going to do with myself? Because I finally, that following year, said, I don't want to go back to Wall Street. What am I going to do? $100 million program, and it's going to be the same thing. And I've since learned, Maslow likes to say self-actualization of reaching the top, and society's definition is the pinnacle of your career. Well, I now say it's actually being at peace within, because when I am, I'm minimally affected by the outside world. And when I am, I can process it and I have the tools. And from this, my energy ripples out and I have the space to create and play.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Well said. Thank you for that.
Thank you. It's taken a while. And that goes back to what you said of being patient. Because I think of all the things that I've healed over the last 10 years had come to me all at once, I think my head would have exploded.
Yes.
We can't do it all at once. We're not meant to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you think about it, it's kind of like going back to school. I mean, they don't throw the encyclopedia at you when you're 5.
Yeah, you're not doing algebra in 2nd grade.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing. It's a whole new concept. It's a whole new education, and you have to start. You just start in kindergarten, 1st grade, kind of get an idea of what's going on. That's one of the things I love about this podcast is, as humans are listening, they're getting just a smidge here and there of an array of different things. And they're able to kind of piece things together really nicely and like non-aggressively. And really hear stories that go along with it that sometimes just resonate with them on a whole nother level that maybe it wouldn't have if they were just reading it or watching an educational movie, video on it or something. It's just like real life, real life transformations, real life pivots like yours into a completely different identity. And you're here to talk about it. And you're here saying like, hey, it got better. It didn't get worse. It actually got way better. And people need to know that.
Yeah, there is the light at the end of the tunnel is you.
Yeah.
And I heard something in the last week that was amazing is this person said he was saying to his therapist, he wanted life to just be steady. And the therapist said to him, but if you look at an EKG, you see your heart going up and down. When it's flat, you've flatlined, you're dead. So life is meant to have hills and valleys, and none of them remain stagnant. So even when things have felt dark, there was that light. And we can know that, there's a hill, and life would be boring if it was just flatlined.
Yeah. I think about that too sometimes. If everything was perfect all the time, like as much as on a daily when you're going through stuff, you're like, why can't it just be like calm for just like a few days in a row of just niceness? But yeah, I mean, that is what makes it exciting. That is, the dodging of the bullets and the, running, racing, and then walking and then sprinting. It's fun, keeps us on our toes.
It certainly does. And there are things that have come to me in the last year that it's like I'd have a vision in my mind of something. And then I realized what it was and how it physically had manifested in my body. And so it's really been profound, the levels of healing that have come through.
That's awesome. Now, we've done a lot of talking on all of the things, but I would love for you to tell us exactly what you do, exactly who you cater to, and where people can find you if they're resonating with all the goodness you're sharing.
I am a speaker. I teach. I'm actually putting together a new class on boundaries and protecting our energy that will be available soon. I work one-on-one with people, and I call it intuitive, multidimensional work. It's coaching and energy work that go hand in hand. And so people can find me on my website, which is Way of the Diamond Warrior, which is reemerging. All of us are warriors within our own life. And there's a diamond, and we have so many facets that are waiting to be seen, that are waiting for us to see them within ourselves. Yeah. And I do this work because I don't want anyone to ever feel as alone as I did for so many years. I pushed and I pushed and I pushed in an effort to try to prove myself. And in a way, and that was part of the negative masculine energy that I carried. So this is why I do what I do, because I can very quickly help people connect with the source of what's really going on. And then we transform the story and we clear the energy. I've had people come to me who are energy workers, who have thought they would never be able to get rid of something. And yet, in a couple of sessions, because she had already done a lot of work, she's clear. And it's pretty amazing, yeah.
That is beautiful. For those that are listening, where can they find you on social media? Where do you hang out at, where they can learn a little bit more about you and hang out with you?
Mostly these days on Facebook. I do a little bit on Instagram, LinkedIn, some, but I've stepped away the last couple months while I went through surgery and radiation and whatnot. So these days, mostly Facebook. And then also on my website, I have an energy leaks assessment that people can take to start to get a glimpse of where they may be leaking their energy. And it's in and around boundaries with family and other things, past, present, and future. Because we carry so much, I think sometimes that we don't even realize. So it's taking one of those 5 questions and then maybe to the point of, well, why do I feel that way? And going down that rabbit hole of being curious.
Yep.
Of what's the story there that wants to be seen so that I can let it go and heal it.
I love the word curious. I'm like absolutely obsessed with it.
Mm-hmm.
I just recently recognized, maybe over the past year or two, that I've always been curious. And I think when I put that word to my endless questions,
Mm-hmm.
it made me feel good. Like that's what it was. I'm just curious. I just want to know all the things all the time. And it's a good thing.
Curiosity is amazing. It opens up the world to us.
Yeah.
And if someone didn't feel safe when they were young, curiosity may not have felt safe.
It did not, from personal experience. Yep.
Yeah, it absolutely did not. And dreaming didn't feel safe.
Yep.
And so this is part of what the healing work does, is it opens up the door to dreaming and curiosity. And what do you really want for yourself? Not what does the outside world want for you, or what do you think, or who do you think you need to be?
Beautiful. What are your big dreams for your business?
Reaching over a million people in the next couple of years, and opening the door for them to be able to see that it is safe. They can be safe. They can dream. The importance of understanding the impact of our internalized energy. It's not all mindset. It's not all action. I actually drew a triangle the other day, and on one side was mindset and the other side was action, but underneath was energy. That's the base. That's the foundation. And really to provide a place where people can get curious and also share.
Why do you do what you do?
I don't want anyone to ever feel as alone as I did. And I've been given these gifts of healing that are here to share.
Who introduced you to all this, by the way? How did you dip your toe in?
It has been...
Was it the therapist? I think you said you went to somebody.
Well, that was part of it. But what really struck me, and I talk about this in my first book, I did an 8-week program that was based on the desire map. Danielle Laporte, and it's still around. It was working with a coach, and I had the choice of either doing an in-depth weekend or 8 weeks, and in which we met weekly. And knowing me, things need to marinate. I need to think about them, and so I did the 8-week program. And on the first group call, she asked, "How do you want to feel?" And it shook me to my core because I realized I couldn't answer the question.
Wow.
I could tell you how I felt based on the outside world. I could tell you I was mad at my ex-husband. I couldn't tell you how I wanted to feel. And that just blew me wide open. And then a few years later, I read the book, The Untethered Soul by Michael. The Surrender Experiment was good, but when I read The Untethered Soul, that again, there are certain things that blew me open. And then also doing Reiki healing and studying with mediumship, world-renowned mediums, and getting curious, dabbling in different forms of divination. And one thing would lead me to another, and yeah, it's now I've got this cauldron of toys.
Yeah. It's so nice. I just wrote today a post about how all the work that I've been doing now entered my dreams. I don't know if you saw that, but I just posted that in my dream, it was a nightmare. I was searching for the learning during the challenge. I was like, what am I learning? What am I learning during all of this? And then once I found the learning, I was like, I need to share this. How am I going to post this? How am I going to write this? And then I woke up. None of it was even real. But I was actually doing that process, that tool that I have, where as soon as I'm confronted with something, instead of falling into victimhood right away, I pull myself out and I say, I'm a student. What am I learning right now? And I did it in my dream. First time this ever happened to me.
I love that.
I woke up so empowered. I'm like, I'm a fucking badass. Like this is so cool.
And our dreams are so powerful. It's spirit speaks to us via symbols. Like if there's a certain bird or a certain tree or a certain animal in your dream, you can then go look that up and say golden retriever symbolism or bluebird symbolism, whatever, or a flower. And this is how spirit communicates with us. And our dreams are incredibly powerful. So a lot of times in the morning when I get up, when I remember my dream, I'll journal on it. And then, so it's kind of journaling on the things, and then it's going deeper of what's the deeper message here.
Yeah. Do you actually research that to figure that out? Or do you just conceptualize common sense what it means because you know what's happening in your life? Or do you do the thing?
The concepts are really, what does it mean to me? And yet, if I see something specific, I will do an online search of, like I said, I'm using, daffodil symbolism because it's spirit will speak to us in like words or a word or two. Or, if you're seeing red balloons all the time, what's the message here for you to receive? So it's a way too that we get to get curious and play with the greater consciousness around us. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this has been great. I so appreciate you coming on and hanging out with myself and Her Nation. Thank you for being here. Any closing thoughts as we wrap up?
Trust. Trust yourself. Trust your inner voice. And it comes in layers. When you receive a message or you have a feeling, play with it.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
If you are watching live or on the replay and you resonate with Stephanie and all the goodness that she shared today, make sure you connect with her. She hangs out on Facebook predominantly. Her website is wayofthediamondwarrior.com. It is in the description wherever you are watching us at. So make sure you click on that and check out all the goodness that she's given to her community today. We love to connect people here on this platform in order to make sure that we all continue to rise. Thank you so much for joining us here on Her Version. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you subscribe, follow, like, and share. If you have an amazing story to share, reach out to me at hernation.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I am so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. Until next time.